Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation. Before we go ahead and start the presentation, I'll cover a bit of housekeeping with all of you. Today's presentation will be recorded, so keep an eye on your inbox in the day or so following the event for a link to the recording and some other links that will be useful for you in case you want to use it for review or maybe share with a colleague or someone else that wasn't able to attend today. Also, if you have any questions for our presenter today, you can feel free to direct them via the chat or question window, and we'll do our best to get to everyone's questions at the end of today's presentation. So with that being said, thank you for joining us for today's presentation on Stratusphere and PowerBI, being one powerful combination for data visualization. And today we're going to be joined by Thomas Lessois, who's going to take us through today's presentation. Thomas?
Thank you, Ray. Thank you. And welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Thomas. I'm sales engineer at Liquidware, spending most of my time with alliances. And on the side, I've been doing a lot of custom reports and analysis based on Stratosphere API. So I'll take you through how I do it and what it is, what can you do with it, and hopefully give you some tips and an overview of the process so you can take it and make it your own. For those who are not familiar with Liquidware, a quick overview. We try to keep the marketing slide to a minimum on what we do. We're in the business of what we call adaptive workspace management. So anything that has to do with the user and his workspace, desktop, cloud desktop, VDI, whatever you want to call it. That has been our focus for the past 9 years now. And we offer 3 solutions to the market. Profile Unity delivers user environment management, so anything that makes your desktop, your profile, your settings, your data, etc., etc. It's a very powerful solution that delivers what we call follow me profile. So your environment, your customization, your personalization can follow you regardless of where you're logging into. Supplementing that, FlexApp offers application layering. So application layering was new 5-6 years ago. It's now become mainstream, but simply put, it allows us to dev application kind of like the way you would download a new app on your phone. It basically clicks the app to an operating system at logon. So it makes it very flexible, very quick, and very easy to deliver apps on demand. And last but not least, because this is going to be the main focus of this seminar, is Stratosphere. Stratosphere is all about monitoring and diagnostic. So it's all about intelligence, data, metrics, and understanding what happens in your workspace. So quick overview of where we play. Obviously, we're not a platform. Our solutions, our 3 solutions, are here to offer a complete lifecycle management. So we typically get involved at different stage of your desktop journey, if you want, or your desktop transformation journey, whether it's at the beginning and you're moving from, let's say, physical to virtual, virtual to cloud, or just one platform to another, where you need to understand and assess what do you have, what do you need, so you can successfully design the best solution possible. We'll get involved most of the time through Profile Unity and the migration itself, the validation of the new platform or the new environment you're targeting, and obviously all solution takes their full role and full benefits during the management phase as you basically operate, troubleshoot when things go bump in the night, optimize your environments, and so on and so forth. As you can see from the left side, we support pretty much all the major platform available today on the market. So a couple main concepts about Stratosphere, if you're not too familiar with it. So as I mentioned before, it's a monitoring solution, and there is a gazillion of them out there. What set us apart a little bit is first our main focus. So we focus on the desktop, but not just the machine itself, whether it's physical or virtual, anything that you can consider a workspace, whether, again, it's physical, virtual, cloud, whether it's just accessing hosted application or stream applications. we consider all that the desktop. And in order to really understand and troubleshoot and provide you with the intelligence you need, we needed to have a solution that goes beyond the simple machine. So we'll track not only the user, the desktop, but also the application it's using, what endpoints you're using to access that desktop, network side, storage, server, even infrastructure or application server on the back end. And we need to get all that information into a single database to offer you that single point of view, that single pane of glass that allows you to see everything that may impact the user ability to access his workspace. And again, as you can see on the right side, whether you're currently delivering desktop through Citrix, VMware, Azure, Google Desktop, AWS, Nutanix, doesn't matter to us. We'll monitor and we support all the platforms. Couple key advantages. Mentioned before, there's a ton of tools out there. So what would set apart Stratosphere? There's a number of reasons. I would say the first one that in my mind takes the lead is the core focus we've had since day one, and we really pioneer the concept of what we call UX or user experience. So a lot of the metrics, the reports, the KPI, the visibility we offer are focusing on that. What impacts your user experience? It goes all the way from, hey, how much time it took you to log in, but also things like, okay, what's affecting that exchange server on the back end that explains why Outlook is slow? Are you doing indexing, taking a view of your Office 365 and how it's being done? Everything in our mind is really tailored towards what data can we collect that will tell us if something is influencing or impacting user experience. A couple of things that I won't go through all of them. A big thing behind us is the solidity and the width of our data, the metrics. Metrics matter a lot to us. And I would say if you want to compare Stratosphere to any other tools, the one thing we feel very comfortable is putting side to sides just the data we provide and we collect. It goes very deep, and you'll see a couple examples, but it goes from being able to harvest all the event logs to see any violation or application errors, seeing everything that happens during a login breakdown, understanding every single steps taken by the OS, the GPOs, down to the milliseconds, and understanding what could impact the login time. So we probably, I haven't done some research, so take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but we probably are, when it comes down to end user computing, we're probably are the solution that has the most expensive set of metrics. If you, again, compare side by side. And finally, one that's very big for me and quite important when it comes to intelligence, all the data we collect is registered with a timestamp. So time-based metrics for trending, for analysis is significant. It has a huge impact to, if nothing else, understand correlation between two events that may seem completely irrelevant to each other. Understanding what an event, that's something that happened on application upgrade, on application or storage, may impact users on the other side of the globe. So everything comes together for us into a single database. All that data is available, and pretty much every question you may have on, do you track this XYZ regarding a user? The answer is probably yes. Now, for those who are familiar with us, I wanted to draw the attention on a couple things that we have that you may not be aware. A couple specific features around Stratosphere. So we do have a UI, you can see the information, you can look at the data, we have reports and so on and so forth. So far, fairly standout, I would say, are a set of features, something you would expect from any typical monitoring tool. As we have an API, and we'll spend a lot of time on that allows us to basically expand beyond the basic UI or basic reports Couple of things you may not be aware, we actually have the ability to build your own dashboard in Stratusphere, so you can build your own GUI, if you want, own set of graphs, and deliver that to let's say an end user that you don't want to give full access to the product. We also started to introduce, that's been going on for a couple of years. We because of our role in the industry and the people we work with, platforms and partners and customers, we typically involve our engineers involved in number of projects. So we've accumulated a huge amount of know-how and expertise around desktop. And what we try to do as we learn and we capture that knowledge is transfer that into the product. One example are spot checks. So spot checks is a tool, a section within the tool that allows you with pretty much one click to do something that would take you probably multiple hours before. It will search and dynamically analyze the entire user population, the entire environment, and come back with, yep, you've got X number of problems. So a quick way to run a high-level, across-the-board diagnostic without having to be engaged in more hands-on and manual process. One other thing I wanted to mention, probably something we've not marketed too much, but it's in the tool already, is the concept of process optimization. So Stratosphere actually have the ability to optimize running applications. So it's takes more of an active role rather than just monitoring. It's one of those hidden secrets that people don't know they have, but I strongly encourage you to, if you're running Stratosphere, to take a look or just go on a website and look for it. It's very powerful stuff. So main use case of Stratosphere. We listed here, again, the idea is to give you a general sense of what customers use our product for. And one thing we realize, and the reason why we inserted those slides in there, is we typically realize that customers and partners are usually associate Stratosphere with a single use case. Typically one of those first two. The onboarding process, or using Stratosphere to get that assessment or design going, get intelligence to reduce risk, and so on and so forth. Diagnostics are typically more involved on the I would say after the migration, pilot, and deployment phase, where you use Stratosphere to validate the environment, but also provide training analysis, understanding how many users are now connected to your environment, how's the user experience, have you reached the level of SLAs you're shooting for. But there's a number of other use cases that usually don't come up to mind, and again, we're trying to understand how our customer use the tool and how some of them kind of think about Stratosphere as a single use case. So one of the use case we've seen rising and becoming more widely used is the concept of application strategy. And the whole idea here is using Stratosphere to understand how users are accessing the application, but also how to optimize that, understanding things like applications that are installed but not used, fairly simple, but also how that application is being delivered. Is that on the base image of your VDI infrastructure? Is that installed on the endpoint? Is that something that's being hosted or streamed, and so on and so forth? We actually have all the information about not only how the application are installed, their configuration, the resource they use, but also how often are they being used, the performance, and so forth. When you combine all that information, all that intelligence into one, you can actually deliver a comprehensive application strategy and determine what's the best way to deliver each application to the end user. Helpdesk support is one of those common use cases where, again, as you can imagine, as we track user experience, as we detect when things go bum in the night, offering through Stratosphere a backend visibility to your level 2, level 1, level 3 supports gives all the information they need to actually resolve the problems quicker. Optimizer, that hidden feature I mentioned, Stratosphere, is getting more and more used in what we call the PC life cycle extensions. The ability to make a machine that's limited in their resource perform better without having to upgrade that machine, as you can see, have tremendous benefits and cost savings for an end user, allowing them most of the time to expand the lifespan of a machine from, let's say, 3-5 years to another couple more years. And you can see how it will impact your budget and capex. Finally, license costs. It's something that's often overlooked, but really powerful. The ability to very quickly understand what application that you pay for, whether it's subscription or support, but actually are not being used, as an immediate impact on the not only on the cost. So obviously there are opportunities to cost on your renewal cost, but imagine what you can do for your overall resources. An application that's basically wasting disk space and sometimes CPU and memory that can be cleaned up. Anyway, those are the main use case of Stratosphere. And as any traditional reporting tool or monitoring tool, we offer a number of tools at your disposal to access that information. We're all about the information business here. So obviously we have a web client where you can log in and you can see the information. From there, you can run reports. We have a huge library of reports. I think it's over 250 standard reports that you can run, you can schedule, you can automatically send by email. As I mentioned before, we have dashboards. So we have a number of pre-built dashboards. You can build your own. And finally, in a more proactive way, we have the ability to set up alerts and send you emails, SNMP alerts when something goes bad. So pretty standard for a reporting tool, monitoring solution, and we're no different than anybody else. The challenge we always face with is how do we, no matter how many reports and dashboard we create, there's always a gap between what we have and what you want. This could be as simple as, oh no, I don't want that this way, I want a chart, I want a pie chart, I want the information this way. There's only so many times we can guess what our end user or partners need. So we've always been in a catch-up 22 scenarios where we try to anticipate. We obviously listen to our customers and partners. We keep on adding reports as we see needs, but it's always a scenarios where we'll never be. There's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a scenarios where we might have 250 reports. Tomorrow we might have 500. There's always going to be one that you need and we don't have. So in order to solve this, one way we looked at it is the ability to use the API. Now, the API initially was not introduced specifically with that use case in mind. We use the API for integration with third-party solutions like platform. For example, we use the API to integrate to ServiceNow, where we can feed our information to their screen. So that was the main use case. But looking at it, we realized that the API was a powerful way to give external access, direct access to a database from a web URL. When you have a web browser, you can get data from Stratusphere. And more importantly, you can get only the data you want. So you're not constrained by a report, a view, a certain screen. You can basically, it's a free-for-all format. So one thing that really attracted me to the API are a couple elements. First, it's simple. I've been working for Liquidware for 7-8 years now, and I still don't know a database schema, and frankly, I don't want to. I don't know SQL. I couldn't write a SQL statement to save my life. The API doesn't need that. It's its own language. It's really simple. You spend about 20 minutes looking through the help, and you'll know how to run an API query. It's that simple. So it's really simple. And the second thing is it gives me access to every single field. So all the data, every data that I see in the UI of Stratosphere, I can access through the API, no limit, whether it's pure inventory or just metrics. It's the simplest access possible. It's basically a URL, and probably the one that I don't care about because I work at Liquidware, but you might. It's fully supported. It's part of a product tool, a product set. So if you're a customer, you're partners, you run an API query, it's not returning, that's our problem. So you can call us, and it's something that's fully supported. So we'll start with the basics. You have a web browser, you have Stratusphere, you can run the API. The API from the web browser will return in either JSON or CSV format. So you can see the data right there on the screen, and you can take the raw data, copy paste if you want to. You have the information you want. Is that useful? Yeah. I've had a number of customers that just save those queries. They just need the raw data, just copy paste on the web browser, hit enter, get the data, copy paste in Excel, you're done. Now, if you start to go one step beyond and you integrate those API query into a tool like Excel. So we have the ability, for example, to run API queries from Excel. What does that give you? Well, if you are looking to do something with the data, so getting the raw data is one thing, but there's calculation you want to make based on that. Maybe some analysis or basically compiling the data to get to an answer. I've made one with a partner where basically the only thing we needed is one data point, which was, is my SLA met, yes or no? That's it. And one number that was basically a percent uptime. But in order to get to that answer, there was 5 tabs, and I don't recall how many formulas that looks at every server, every desktop, every silos involved. This was a Citrix environment on both XenApp and Xen Desktop, license server, domain controllers, storefront servers, and so on and so forth, looking at every minute of every day and looking at whether each silo was up and running. So when you picture something like that, where you need the data, but what you need to do is a lot more advanced, you can embed those API queries into an Excel spreadsheet, tie that to basically a button that says go and run for last week, and Excel will do the heavy lifting, and you're left off with the answer or the reports. Now, beyond Excel, in the past 12 to 18 months, we've extended use case to other business intelligence tools. So Excel is great, but it does have some limitation. And we started to play with PowerBI. Why PowerBI? Simply put, it's free. As long as you have Office 365 subscription, PowerBI is included. So the desktop version is from Microsoft, is free. And PowerBI is designed, if you want, just for that purpose. Take data and offer intelligence. So we started building dashboards and reports using Power BI. Same concept as Excel. We can build them and build templates where the API query, once it's copied and saved in that template, is something that you don't have to redo ever again. Just click the refresh button and the data will be imported. Now, the power of Power BI lies not so much on the data collection. This is basically our API doing it. It's more about the visualization. And that's where we started to learn about it and realize how powerful it was. Now, fair disclaimer, everything I'm going to say from now on is going to be tied on Power BI, but the same concept can be applied to any business intelligence solution. So Tableau or any other tools you might be using, same idea. They're all designed to have connector, plugins, APIs, imports, however you want to call it. They're designed to get information from the outside. With our API, we can feed that information very easily. And then from there, you can build your dashboard. What excited me when I started looking into that is the idea of having in front of me a blank page. I have a blank page and I'm not limited in any way. I'm only limited by my imagination and what I want to achieve. And I can start to draw and say, right, I want something that I want to have an overview of, in that case, the profile complexity. And I'm going to start looking at every user and I'm going to invent or create those indicators, such as the application complexity, the number of violation or bad event logs, the size of the application in your desktop, the impact that application might have on your login time, and so on and so forth. So I'm inventing that process or those indicators and rolling everything into a dashboard that now, once it's finished, I can just apply to any customer, any partners, with one click of a button. The process to get there is fairly straightforward. As you can see, it all lies on the API queries, and that's also the added value I see in using the API plus a tool like Power BI. It's the ability to add to do what we call data manipulation. And I'm not just talking about filters, because you can filter in Stratosphere, but it's the ability to add a calculated field to say, to install what if scenarios. It says, okay, if you're a user with a lot of application, but your login time is really small and you have a very low footprint on the disk, I'm still going to call you let's say, a low complexity profile. But at the same time, if you have only 3 applications using, but I see your login takes a minute and 65 seconds, I'm going to raise a flag and say you're high profile user. Now, making those judgment calls as an example, this is not something that exists inside Stratusphere database. I'm making those stuff up based on the intelligence, and that's the value I see in leveraging the API and tools like Power BI. Visualization obviously is also a big plus for me. It calls on making stuff sexy or appealing. Now, of course, you only have yourself to blame if it's not, but it allows you to play and make something that will have more appeal depending on the audience you're looking for, whether it's the other BU in your organization, your boss, the executive, your customer, and so on and so forth. And finally, the last piece I found really interesting is that I can take a dashboard and publish that to a web page, so I can send my customer, my partner, my coworkers, my boss, a link, an HTML link. That's all I need. It doesn't need to install Power BI. It doesn't need to have the client of Power BI installed. It doesn't need to learn anything about Power BI. What it will see is exactly what you see in that screen, in HTML that have the data. Not only has the data, but it's actually dynamic. You can actually click on stuff, drill down, zoom in, and so on and so forth. So really powerful. And that credit goes to Power BI because Stratosphere has nothing to do with it. We provide the raw data. So main use case we've seen customers and partners use our API for. They vary a little bit. The first one is probably around personalization. So it's all about, yeah, I like your report, but I want to see my report with my logo on it. Great, use Power BI. Dashboard is another one. And that came earlier before we started to release our own dashboard. But one use case was, hey, I want to give my customer one small view, but I want to control what they see and what they can drill into. I don't necessarily want them to have a full admin user access to Stratosphere. This is me. This is mine. I'm using it to deliver a service. So that allows you to open those windows, control window into the data to report on things like SLAs, uptime, chargeback, user experience, and so on and so forth, trending, growth, and so on and so forth. Data mining, business intelligence dashboard. So this is where you start to add your own intelligence, and I think for me that's the most attractive part for specifically for partners. You have your own way of doing things. You have your own expertise. You bring something to the table. While using the API and Power BI, now you can reconcile the two together. So now that report, that dashboard, is no longer just a Stratosphere data point. It's XYZ dashboard. And you're getting data from Stratosphere. And by the way, another side use case or benefits is that I can actually start looking into data from different sources. I have a use case we're working with a customer where we're pulling data from the HR system, and that gives us location and geolocation that then we match with Stratosphere. So we can come up with a map of the world that will show where those users are from and give me another visualization. So you're not limited to just Stratosphere. But the overall message here is that if you invest your time into Power BI with the API, you can make those dashboards, those reports your own. And you basically built in or you develop an IP that is only yours, and we have nothing to do with it. Again, with the added benefits of being supported. Now, granted, if something goes wrong inside Power BI, that's not on us. But if that API query doesn't come through, it's on us. It's part of the product. Couple example I wanted to share of dashboard we built in the past. This is something we did almost a year ago when the whole pandemic started. The whole idea here was to provide a simple, high-level overview of remote users, remote workers. And the whole idea or the whole concept behind that was coming from discussion with a number of customers. And the overall questions we're trying to answer is, how are my employees doing? Is there something I should be concerned about? Am I able to deliver the tools for them to be productive? So from those discussions we had with our customers came up this dashboard, and it's centered around two main, I would say, mind views. The first one is capacity. It's that green number on the top. How am I doing from, a VMware, Citrix, a Nutanix perspective? Am I able to deliver the capacity that they need to? And then the second angle is more about, do I have any problems? And that's that number, that simple number that comes up with how many users at risk are. Now, user at risk doesn't exist in Stratosphere. It's a number that was a metrics that was invented and based on a number of components. To share a little bit what's behind it, it's a mix of performance, so VDI UX, if you're familiar with Stratosphere, so all those components like login time, CPU queue, disk queue, and so on and so forth, swapping. They also add a dimension of user connectivity. So we look at things like, how long are you connected? Are you able to connect? Are you connecting every day? How many times it takes you to log in? Do we see multiple attempts? Do we see a user that has been idle for 12 hours? In that case, something's wrong. Something's not happening. So it's a combination of different metrics where we roll into one. Another example, completely different, and this one is more recent, was designed more for customers and partners that have, let's say, move a number of their users to a cloud platform, AWS, WVD, Citrix on Azure, VMware on Azure, take your pick, and are then taking a more of a optimization debrief approach that says, great, I just moved 2,000 users to, let's say, AWS. And because of the urgency, we just move everybody. Now I want to get a sense of, am I paying too much? Or is there room to optimize? And this view here is the first page. There's a couple others after that basically provide that view, that analyze usage. So it's not so much about performance or things like that. It's more about, are you using a machine that has been oversized for you? Should you go down one tier or two tiers? Or the reverse? Are you on a machine that's undersized, and as a result, you're experiencing slow application response time and things like that, as well as a view around number of time you logged into that machine and active versus what you pay for. And this is typically to give you a recommendation or sense of whether you should go, you should pay monthly for those machines or on an hourly basis. So two good examples. I wanted to bring back the attention around the dashboards, because right now you basically have two choices. You have the ability to build dashboard in Stratosphere without using the API, without using Power BI, or go the Power BI route. I wanted to, and there's sometimes either one could be a good answer. This is not so much a one is better than the others, but I wanted to point out a couple elements or factor that may impact your decision. The first one are metrics. If you're looking only at the raw metrics and the dashboard you want to build only have the information from Stratusphere, or do you want to add data from another source or calculated field? One of the limitations of the Stratusphere dashboard is it doesn't have that Excel type or Power BI type capabilities to create indicators or to do A plus B. I don't know if there was ever a reason to create an indicator that I want to see CPU usage plus memory usage, and that comes up with a number. Well, we can't do that in Stratosphere. We don't have the ability to create a new field out of the blue. Something you can do on Power BI. Visualization, so Stratosphere will provide a number of widgets that you can use. If you want to go outside the box, that's where you probably will have more options in Power BI. Same idea with personalization. Obviously, if you want your logo or picture of your cats on the dashboard, you'll have to go to Power BI. Data source, I already mentioned. If you're looking to combine data from two different data sources, and that also could include data from multiple Stratosphere database. We have customers that will have different Stratosphere database per region. Now you can have a dashboard that kind of pull all of them together. Now data refresh is probably where Power BI lacks or pale in comparison to Stratosphere. Obviously, when the process of getting a dashboard in Power BI involve a couple steps. I have my API query. If I click on refresh, it pulls the data from Stratosphere, dump that onto Power BI, and then it publishes the data to a dashboard. All those steps means that you'll never have a Power BI dashboard that's refreshed as frequently or easily as something running straight into Stratosphere. And I'm sure with a little bit of advanced settings and maybe scripting, you can reach something that's similar, but then the question becomes, do you really want to? Data in Stratosphere can be refreshed every minute. It's there, it's always on, and it's basically the source, data coming straight from the source. And finally, the support. If you break Power BI, if there's a Power BI error message, Stratosphere or Liquidware can help you. If there's an error message on your Stratosphere dashboard, yeah, it's on us. It's our dashboard. So know when to choose and what's the most appropriate. For me, I would bring it down to very simple consideration. If I need something that's live, that refresh all the time, and I don't need anything else but the Stratosphere data that I want to organize the way I want, Stratosphere dashboard are the way to go. More robust and it's directly from the box, so it's a lot easier. If I need to get outside of that and I need to add my own calculated field, that's where I'm going to start leaning towards API and Power BI. Right, let's get to the thick of the matter and how do you get there? So if today you want to do a dashboard, like the couple example we've seen, you'll need three things besides Stratosphere. So obviously you need Stratosphere. You need Power BI. You need to enable the API access, and you need basic understanding of what we call Stratosphere Inspector. That's basically the three things you need, assuming you have a web browser. Power BI, as I mentioned, is something that is available in as long as you have an Office 365. And my guess, I haven't checked, but even if you're not using Office 365, my guess is you can download the Power BI desktop application for free. Just search for Power BI on Microsoft website and you'll probably find it. Me, it was just a matter of opening my Office 365 account, my Office account, and finding it and clicking on it to download the desktop application. Desktop application will allow you to do all the steps after that. Import the data through Power BI, create your dashboard, and then publish the dashboard. So that's all you need. And again, there is no fee or additional cost. Two is access control. The API, in order to enable the API, you need to actually do something by default out of the box in Stratosphere. The API is not open. Why? Well, simply put, because it's direct access to the data. For security purposes, we could not let the API wide open. So in order to do that, you can, the preferred method, and the one I'm using is in the Stratosphere configuration. If you log into the administration, there is a section around the API settings. In that one, you can actually add an IP address, and that's the IP address of the machine that will run the API query. So in your case, the IP address or the IP range, you can make that very open if you want to, of the desktop where you're going to run Power BI from, the desktop application. Enable that and make sure that you as a user, like here in that case, have that allow API access checkbox enabled. That will give you access to the API builder, as well as allow you to run those API calls. So you need your IP in there and make sure that you as a user is able to make those API calls. Accessing the API, talking about which, if there's one screen you want to remember throughout the whole presentation, this is the one. You basically have 3 links, and really 2 links you want to remember. The most important is probably the one in the middle. Open a web browser, put the IP or DNS name of Stratusphere /API builder, and that'll bring up the visual side of the API. That's where the API becomes real. That's where you'll be able to see. Actually, it's a GUI in front of the API if you want, and build your API queries. If you're a purist, or if you want to allow you want to learn the hard way, which I actually recommend, that's how I learned about it, use the first link, hub name /LWL/API. That will open the actual API, I would say, front end. It's going to be ugly as hell, but if you read through that page, you'll see in the bottom there is a number of instruction, kind of README sections. You'll know everything you need to know about the API. So the easy way is the API builder, and moving forward, I strongly encourage you to build your queries as you're making those dashboard using the API builder. Big time saver. But if you really want to become an expert into the API and understand all the subtleties, go to the first one. Finally, the last link I put in there just so you understand how it's formatted. This is the format of an API query. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to have everything between those brackets is actually going to be the instruction or the queries you're making. Hey, I want to see users, and I want to see the CPU usage by user, and I want that over the 7 days. Everything you want to put in that query is going to be between those brackets. And this is typically how a query is copy and paste into a web browser and also stored on Power BI. So LWL API is the actual official API front end. API builder is a GUI put in front of it to make your life easier. I use it all the time. And the query format is going to be as below. Now, this is what the API builder looks like. And again, I can't stress enough how useful this will become in your life to build those API. The concept is very simple. If you look at the section on the left side, the big section, when you have the top menu, main, search, column, filter, sorting, output, date, this is where you point and click and decide what data you're going to see. On the bottom, you're going to see the results. So you actually see live what your query output is going to look like. And then on the right side, you actually see the query. It's broken down instead of single lines, so you can read it more easily. And when I'm building a new API query and creating a Power BI report, I'll use the API builder to get the query to get exactly what I want. So I'll look on the bottom, and then on the right, I'll just click on the copy button to copy that query. Then I'll just need to paste that into Power BI. Now, I mentioned the last piece is knowing your inspectors. Inspector is a weird name. I'll start by saying that. Consider inspectors as views if it's easier to understand. But the main thing is we have so much data in Stratosphere plus the fact that we, by design, want it to be not limited to a silo, but look at every aspect that impacts an end user workspace, that we could not show everything into a single view. So we created Inspector. On the back end, it's one single database, but Inspector will give you different set of information. The first one you're looking here is the user, and it's what we call Inspector 0 or Summer Inspector. It's by far the biggest, most complete inspector. If you're looking for data that's related to a machine or a user, this is where you go. It'll give you everything: CPU, memory, disk, etc., etc. And then the rest, as you go down the tabs, are more specialized views. Application, for example, as the name says, will be focusing more on the application name, the processes, and so on and so forth. Login, network, you see where I'm going with that. So depending on what information you need, you might need one, but maybe 2, 3, 4 different queries going after different inspectors. So knowing your inspectors, I would say it's a good idea if you're new to Stratosphere and you want to build a Power BI report. Spend an hour and go for each tabs. Spoiler alert: the first 2 tabs, as you can see here, user and machine, are actually the same inspector. No difference. You can actually play with it if you want. If you change the basis, so the first one, as you can see, is a list of metrics by user. You can actually change by using the lookup here. Instead of using user, you go to machine and change the second tab, machine, to user. The names will change. So because it's the biggest one and the most used, we actually created 2 so you can run them in parallel. But the first one and second tab are actually the exact same thing, no difference. Everything else is its own different inspector. Now I'm going to take you through A to Z, how do it, and how I from start to finish, how I'm starting a dashboard from concept to the end. And here is the biggest advice I can give you: start by the finished product. So whenever I think or I need to create a new report or a new dashboard using Power BI, the very first thing I'm starting with is, and I do that with a pen of paper, but you can do that in PowerPoint, you can do that on Words, is I try to draw the end result. That will tell me, that will give me a lot more information. So first, it allows me, I'm typically not doing, every time I'm doing a dashboard, I'm not doing it for myself. I'm usually doing it with or for a partner or customers. So there's an interaction and there is expectation on both ends. And this could apply to you. This could be for a customer, for your boss, or for your peers. It's a good idea to first agree at least on a high level mockup. It doesn't have to be exact, but at least so you get the concept down, right? So I want those numbers here, and that numbers mean that, and I want a pie chart here, and then a graph by day. What this will give you is the starting point of your designs. From the mockup, I will see what data points I need, and from there, I'm going to be able to determine how many queries I'm going to make, to what inspector, what basis they're going to have, if there is a time resolution, and the actual names of each columns. So start with the mockup, and from there, you're going to build your shopping list, basically, of what you need. So look at everything, and that's where you'll see that having, you might have data for one graph and then data for another graph. They're all coming back to the same inspector, so you can have one queries that's going to produce column 2, 3, and 4 are for the first graph, and 5, 6, and 7 are for that table I'm building. So you might actually, even though you have 7 graphs in your dashboard, you might end up with only 1 or 2 queries. The reverse is true as well. I can have the idea of single versus multiple basis is a big concept to understand. For example, I can see a view, let's say CPU and memory usage by user. Great. And I'm only calling that. Single basis is user. I have 2 columns, CPU and memory usage. But I actually want to know how they change during the day, and when do they peak. Well, that First query doesn't tell me that. It's only one number per user, and that number by default in Stratusphere is going to be an average. And let's say I'm making that query for the last 7 days. I'm going to have an average over the 7 days of that user is using 22% CPU. It's not the answer I'm looking for. So in order to get that, I'll need to add another basis, which is a date. And maybe let's say I only want to see things by on an hourly basis. My second basis will be date hourly. So I'm only going to have 24 data points per user. Midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. But for each of them, now I'm going to have a different CPU number, which is in average how much CPU consumed between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. Now that's going to get me what I need. So single, multiple basis, API queries, and the metrics themselves, the columns, is almost like the last thing in my shopping list. So first, I'll determine how many queries do I need, because I need data from different inspectors. Then single, look at the basis I need, and then finally, I fill in the metrics. Here is an example, and I try to recreate the step I took when building that dashboard. I had an ID, not exactly like that, but I think I threw away my piece of paper of what I wanted to see. And from there, I looked at, right, I need that. They want a calendar view of what's going on that week or that month. So my first thought was, okay, I'll need a summary inspector, which is inspector 0. My basis is date, only date. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I need a user count, and I'll need something about time active. I need to know, how many times they logged in. Great, that's how I'm started. But then I thought, oh crap, I have that concept of user at risk, and I need to color differently. I need to count. Now, user at risk is that new metrics or new KPI or new index are created. I'm basing that on a numbers, is like maybe 8 or 9 different metrics I'm using it for. Like, do you have CPU queue? How much is your login time? Now, with that first inspector and basis date, that's not enough to get me what I need, because it's not telling me what user is having those issues. So that summary inspector changed from being just based on the date to date and user. So now I'm pulling for each day of the week, each user, and I'm putting all those UX metrics in there: CPU queue, login time, blah blah blah, etc. I changed completely the way I'm going to build that graph here, because I no longer have like a single metrics, right? Day 1, day 2. I'm going to have as many, let's say March 2nd. I'm going to have as many March 2nd as there were users logged in on March 2nd. But the only thing it changes is really how I'm creating that graph. Now that graph, those numbers are no longer a single number I'm pulling from Stratosphere. It's actually, I'd say, hey, count the number of users who have exceeded X, blah, 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 that are considered at risk. So those first section gave me the first query. And then the last one, capacity, was easy. It was about, right, I need to look into my host. I think that was VDI in mine or something like that. And I need you every day to report on CPU and memory being used, and then I'll compile them together, probably do an average, do a Bailey capacity, so I can get that graph in there. But you get the concept. I started with the results and then built my queries. And then from there, once I define my queries, all I need to do is execute. And the execute piece is almost easy. It's just building the API query. So switch to my API builder. Now thanks to this, I have my shopping list done. I just need to follow it. Click, click, click. I need host, I need CPU, I need memory, my resolution is date, and it's going to build my API queries straight there. I'm going to copy it. And now that white screen you see here is actually from the Power BI desktop, where it says, oh, you get a new source, web source. If you choose web as a type of source for Power BI, this is what it will show you. If you go basic like I did here, all you need to do is copy anything here into that and click on OK. At that point, what Power BI, at that stage, we're inside Power BI desktop, will do is convert that query into table and you actually have all the data from that query imported and copied into Power BI. Now you have a table, and from that table, you create your dashboard. So very simply put, you'll select the field, and then as you can see here, and this is where, if you're not familiar with Power BI, it's fairly straightforward, it's fairly intuitive, but this is where you're going to start playing and says, okay, I want this field, this field, this field. Oh, and this is going to be a graph. This is going to be a pie chart. This is going to be a table, etc., etc. This is where you can actually, you're building your blank page. And the final step is, if you see here, there's a button that's called Publish. Publish will take whatever you see on that screen and create an HTML view. You can tag that link, send it to someone, and they'll see exactly that. Now, the data is static, meaning that you don't necessarily by default have a button to refresh the data and pull new data in, but it's dynamic. If I click on something like A-, it will impact all the other graphs to only show me the user that have an A- rating. So you might see, I don't know what that one is. Well, that's the same thing, but you might see, how much CPU they're using and so on and so forth. So they all tie together. Right, so we're coming to the end of the call. Couple of things I wanted to, last thing I wanted to leave you with, we actually started to build and dump API Power BI template reports in our community. So if you go to community.liquidware.com, search for API or search for Power BI, and you'll find a couple helps and probably at least one template that you can steal and use and make your own. Great starting point. And that should be a wrap for our presentation. So I want to thank you for your time. And I think we're going to open up for questions.
Yeah, we definitely do, Thomas. Thanks for that great presentation. So there's a few questions, and I can actually take the first one. Todd asked, will this presentation be posted on our website? And yes, we will be posting it. We're recording it, and we'll post this to the website. Normally it takes about a day or so before we get this over and that recording processed and pushed up live. So keep an eye on your inbox. We send out a link via email to that, so that'll be out there as well. Also, someone asked, can this be integrated with Splunk?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I have exactly zero knowledge of, not zero knowledge, zero practice with Splunk, but absolutely, same concept. As long as Splunk allows you to read either a flat file, HTML or JSON query, you're golden, you can use the API. So it lets you copy and paste an API link. And if Splunk is able to digest or understand CSV format or JSON format, which I'm willing to bet a B or two that they do, because it's the simplest form ever, then yeah, you called it.
All right, someone asked, does the API builder come with Stratosphere?
Yes, for $1 million. No, I'm kidding. No, it comes built in. It's one of those secret things that we don't tell, but yeah. So if you remember that link, and actually I'll show you if I can get out of here. Here we go. I think I have it here. So this is our demo environment. As you can see, our DNS name is demo.liquidware.com, and here I'm logged in and looking at some dashboard. The API builder is basically demo.liquidwarelabs.com/API builder. Forget the dash, the pound, etc. So if you have Stratusphere, just check that /API builder, it will come up. It's included, it's supported, it's free of charge.
All right. Someone asked, is there any training on the API builder?
Great question, and the answer right now is no. I was just actually in preparation for that webinar, we thought about it, and I had a sit down with our the person responsible for training to see whether it was possible to incorporate API training into the standard Stratosphere course. And the challenge for a traditional course is that API training or Power BI, for example, is only useful as when using a use case. It's very difficult to train to say, hey, by the way, we're going to make a dashboard and API query to get application, I don't know, application performance. If the audience doesn't care about application, it's really hard to convey that training. So what we decided is what we might do in the future. So two things. One is I will be working with the trainer to create like a starting kit, something that will have one template, all the instructions, and then the training will include a portion that says, by the way, this is how you start and take over of the common API queries, and then go for it, use the kit. So that's something you will see in our traditional training. I would say the instructor-led training sessions. What we also do, and that's something that I'm more than happy to offer, is we typically do off-the-cuff training. So if you guys are interested to just learn about the API, what I would suggest is reply to use the contact on the webinar, or contact your Liquidware main contact. But if you go to sales@liquidware.com and just mention, hey, I was on the webinar for Power BI, I'm looking for training, I'll reply to it, and I'm more than happy to set up a couple hours training on the fly to show you how to get started. So the quick answer, so it's long, is you can either wait until the instructor-led training, I would say, includes that basic of the API training in there, or just ping your SE or your sales rep at Liquidware, or ping sales at Liquidware, refer the Power BI webinar, or simply, I think, reply to the email with a copy of the registered webinar, and I'll reach out to you and we can organize an off-the-cuff training. More than happy to do that.
So I know we're a little bit long here, and I know someone said this was a great presentation, but they had to jump for a next call. But we do have a few more questions. So are you good, Thomas, to answer a few more?
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So someone asked, could we purchase a professional service engagement to help set up a Power BI dashboard for a specific use case?
Yep, absolutely. So kind of not the same response, but I would say yes, absolutely. We've done a couple of those. Again, I would say if you have a Liquidware contact, ask them, and they'll be able to quote you for doing that for you.
Excellent. Someone also asked, does this support Power BI Cloud?
Yes. Yeah. All Power BI is supported. The quick answer is yes. The long answer is I haven't played with it. So most of the dashboard I'm building are managed from their I don't know if they call it the cloud desktop or anything like that. But so the quick answer is yes. I haven't played. I know there is like more advanced licensing around Power BI. You can have like Enterprise Platinum Edition. I'm using what they call the Pro version. Yeah, I've got the Pro account that does give me that cloud dashboard, if you want, or workspace. But yeah, all the different versions are supported on the back end.
Excellent. And it looks like I've covered most of the questions here. Some of them were going across other lines, but I see one other question that is related. You touched on it earlier, but maybe isn't on the main part of this, and I thought I'd bring it up. Someone asked if there's a way to use process optimization to get better online video streaming, I guess, or viewing using Google Chrome.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. So the process optimization, what at the core of it, what it's going to do, and it's probably worth having a deeper discussion with your Liquidware SE, but at the core of it, the process optimization allows you to not having processes that freeze your machine. So it's going to give enough resource for each processes, and it's going to give the priority to whatever process is on the front. How do we call it? The front running application, the one you're actually looking at, to have all the priority. So to give you an honest answer, when it comes to video streaming on a Chromebook, the answer would be yes, if what makes it slow, what used to slow it down, was actually that the application running the streaming video, when it's in the forefront, is not getting enough resources. If other processes, if that endpoint device is kind of limiting that. If the problem is poor network connection, high latency, no, process optimization is not going to help.
But Stratosphere would help you figure that out, though, right?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should do the business of selling Stratupshere, but yeah, Stratupshere will actually tell you why it's slow, and maybe that's the first step. And maybe process optimization is the answer, maybe not, but at least if you use Stratupshere, you'll know.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well, I think we covered all the bases of the questions that we have there. If you have any other further questions, feel free to reach out to sales@liquidware.com. Reach out to any of us. Join the community, check that out. That's a great place to ask, or Thomas mentioned we were sharing a lot of reports and things like that on there as well. But that's a great place to engage with not only our Liquidware experts, but also other users that have run into similar issues, or trying to figure something out and wanted to share some ideas there. So that's a great place to go out there and ask your questions and get answers out there as well. So with that being said, thank you, Thomas, for bringing us through today's presentation. Thank you all for joining us today, and keep an eye on your inbox for that email with the link to the recording and some of the other bits and pieces that are great out here. We'll have links to the community and a link to the slides if you want them as well. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you all.